Good evening. We begin tonight with yet another destructive strike against Ukraine's vital southern infrastructure, as Russian missiles slammed into the vicinity of the key Odesa port in the pre-dawn hours of December 21st. This latest high-intensity attack has confirmed fatalities and serious injuries among the civilian population and has immediately triggered profound concern regarding the stability of the critical maritime export corridor that keeps global food supplies moving. The scale of the attack, targeting facilities directly connected to the economic lifeline of Ukraine, prompted Kyiv to issue one of its most forceful and urgent pleas to date for advanced Western air defense systems, arguing that nothing short of a substantial protective dome can now safeguard the region. We have gathered the verified facts from the ground, layered against the highly contested claims emanating from both Moscow and Kyiv regarding the targets, the intent, and the precise weaponry employed. What we know definitively is that a major missile barrage occurred targeting the immediate Odesa port area and surrounding industrial zones. Local emergency services, AZs, have confirmed that the destruction resulted in multiple civilian casualties. This casualty report includes both confirmed fatalities and individuals sustaining serious injuries in the port proximity. These numbers underscore the inherent danger of these strikes hitting heavily utilized logistical zones, regardless of the ultimate military objective. Physical damage reports, corroborated by satellite imagery analysis and local municipal fire reports, confirm significant structural damage. This damage was sustained primarily by infrastructure within the designated port security zone, specifically affecting non-military warehouse facilities and ancillary logistical workshops. While the specific nature of the materials stored in those workshops remains disputed, the fact that significant economic and logistical infrastructure was disabled is not. The defense response, while partial, was confirmed by the Ukrainian Air Force. Officials stated that a portion of the incoming missile barrage was successfully intercepted, but the sheer volume and possible complexity of the attack meant that multiple projectiles reached their intended targets. The danger posed by these interceptions was immediately evident, as confirmed debris from the downed missiles landed in residential areas outside the immediate port zone, further heightening the risk to the civilian population in surrounding districts. The international implications of the strike were instantaneous and severe. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, known as OCHA, issued an official communique confirming the immediate suspension of grain inspections within the port, citing overwhelming staff safety concerns following the sustained attack. OCHA announced a minimum 48-hour cessation of these critical activities, creating an immediate, if temporary, bottleneck in the flow of essential global foodstuffs. This decision highlights the direct link between military strikes on logistical hubs and global humanitarian concerns, particularly regarding food security. This is the verifiable picture. However, the narrative around why the strike happened and what was truly hit is sharply contested between the belligerents. Moscow's official posture, delivered through the Russian Ministry of Defense, claims the strikes were highly successful and justified. Russia alleges that these strikes successfully neutralized Ukrainian logistics centers that they claim were storing large caches of Western-supplied NATO weaponry. Specifically, the Kremlin claims to have targeted and destroyed high-precision missiles and maritime drones allegedly destined for immediate use in the Black Sea theater. This claim, which aims to legitimize the strike as a purely military counter-logistical operation, remains unverified by any independent source, lacking wreckage analysis or third-party intelligence corroboration. Furthermore, the Russian Ministry of Defense offered an immediate counter-narrative to the confirmed civilian damage and casualties reported by Kyiv. Moscow claimed that all Russian missiles used in the attack were precision-guided and were explicitly designed to avoid civilian infrastructure. The resulting civilian damage, Russia alleges, was not caused by their warheads, but rather by malfunctioning or incorrectly targeted components of the Ukrainian air defense systems. This specific attribution of collateral damage to the defensive side is a consistent feature of Russian reporting following strikes on urban areas. But again, independent analysis has yet to substantiate this claim regarding the December 21st attack. Kiev's response framed the attack in starkly different terms. The Ukrainian presidential office immediately characterized the attack not simply as a military strike, but as a deliberate act of economic terrorism. Ukraine alleges that the true intent was not to hit mythical caches of advanced Western weaponry, but specifically to target civilian grain, loading terminals, and critical logistical infrastructure, essential for maintaining the safe passage corridor agreed upon previously under the Black Sea initiative structure. Ukraine argues that the pattern of sustained targeting in the Odesa region demonstrates a deliberate attempt to choke off Ukraine's core export economy and global food contributions. The nature of the weaponry used also forms a significant part of the unverified claims. Ukrainian Air Force Command issued an immediate alert, alleging that Russia employed the use of Kh-47 M2 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles in this strike wave. They claim the use of such advanced and notoriously difficult to intercept weaponry was specifically aimed at overwhelming the existing finite air defenses protecting the maritime region. If the deployment of Kinzhal missiles is independently confirmed, it would signify a considerable escalation in the effort to dismantle Odesa's defenses, as these systems possess speeds and trajectory characteristics that severely challenge older or less capable defensive batteries. Currently, the Kinzhal usage remains a serious but unverified claim by Kiev. The immediate consequences of the strike and the competing claims surrounding them pivot directly into the urgent demands issued by Ukraine to its Western partner. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry did not waste time in generalizing its need. They detailed a specific, immediate requirement: the provision of 2 additional Patriot missile defense batteries and their associated interceptor stock. Kiev argues that this specific hardware is necessary to create what they describe as a minimal protective dome over the Odesa maritime cluster, offering a credible shield against the kind of sophisticated, layered attacks seen earlier this week. Layering upon this immediate tactical need, unverified assessments offered by unnamed Western intelligence officials suggest a broader strategic shift underpinning these sustained Russian strikes on Odesa. These officials suggest that the repeated targeting of port and logistics hubs indicates a crucial shift in Russian priority. The objective they propose is now explicitly focused on disrupting Ukraine's deep winter logistics supply lines, specifically attempting to hinder anticipated large-scale armed forces of Ukraine ground operations that may be planned or prepared for early 2026. This assessment frames the Odesa attacks not just as punitive actions, but as proactive efforts to degrade Ukraine's ability to sustain major offensives months down the line. To understand the weight of this week's strike, we must place Odesa in its strategic context. Odesa is far more than just a large city. It is the linchpin of Ukraine's remaining access to the sea and, consequently, its ability to engage in global trade. Before the full-scale invasion, Odesa handled approximately 65% of all Ukrainian maritime freight. Though war conditions have drastically reduced that capacity, its port cluster remains the essential hub for the modified grain corridor, a lifeline critical not only for Ukraine's state budget, but for preventing humanitarian crises in recipient nations across the Middle East and Africa. The targeting of these areas is perceived by Kiev and many international observers as an attempt to enforce a complete economic siege, effectively rendering the Black Sea Initiative and subsequent safe passage arrangements null through constant, credible threat. Every missile that hits a warehouse, a silo, or a navigational aid directly increases shipping insurance costs, dramatically raises the operational risk for commercial vessels, and pressures international shipping firms to pull back from the corridor entirely. In this sense, Moscow does not need to sink every grain ship. It only needs to make the operational environment impossibly dangerous or prohibitively expensive. The historical pattern confirms this vulnerability. Throughout the conflict, Odesa has cycled through periods of relative calm and intense bombardment, often coinciding with geopolitical negotiations regarding the grain deal. When Moscow feels pressure, or when it seeks to exert maximum leverage over regional powers like Turkey, the strikes on Odesa tend to intensify, This most recent attack, therefore, is being analyzed closely not just for its military impact, but for its intended diplomatic and economic leverage. The alleged use of Kinjal missiles, should that claim be verified, speaks to an increasing operational challenge for Kyiv. The defense of Odesa is complicated by its sheer size and its proximity to the Black Sea, from which Russian vessels and aircraft can launch standoff weapons with minimal warning time. The current air defense umbrella relies on a patchwork of Western and Soviet-era systems. While systems like Patriot and NASAMS have proven highly effective against cruise missiles and even tactical ballistic missiles, defending a vast coastal zone against repeated saturation attacks, including alleged hypersonic threats, requires an extremely high density of interceptors and launchers. Ukraine's call for 2 additional Patriot batteries is fundamentally a mathematical calculation. Each Patriot system has a limited engagement radius and a finite number of available intercepts. To cover an industrial zone the size of the Odesa maritime cluster, protect its critical infrastructure, and simultaneously maintain defenses over the population centers and military staging areas inland requires multiple overlapping coverage rings. 2 additional batteries would substantially increase the probability of intercepting high-value threats like the Kinjal or advanced ballistic systems, transforming the defense from reactive protection to a more stable deterrence. However, the acquisition of these systems is fraught with political and logistical challenges. Western allies, while sympathetic, face 2 primary constraints: stock depletion and training time. Patriot systems are high-demand assets globally. Moving 2 batteries and their trained crews means stripping them from defense commitments elsewhere, a complex decision for NATO member states. Furthermore, the interceptor missiles themselves are expensive and produced slowly, creating a supply chain fragility that complicates promises of long-term aid volume. The call from Ukraine is immediate, but the delivery schedule is inevitably dictated by the complexities of the Western military-industrial base. The unverified Western intelligence assessment suggesting that Russia is targeting winter logistics supply lines adds a critical layer of strategic understanding. If true, the Odesa strikes fit into a broader operational picture that includes renewed targeting of rail infrastructure, bridges, and fuel depots across southern and eastern Ukraine. Logistics are the backbone of any large-scale military operation. Disrupting the movement of fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and winterized equipment now could severely limit Ukraine's ability to mount a robust counteroffensive in the early spring months of 2026. This strategy suggests a long-term Russian view aimed at attrition. If they can continuously degrade Ukraine's ability to stockpile supplies, the front lines will eventually face material deficiencies, regardless of the flow of Western funding promises. The Odesa strike, therefore, is not an isolated event, but potentially a key component in Russia's winter campaign to decouple Ukraine's frontline sustainment from its global supply chains. The analysis of this particular strike wave also touches upon the inherent difficulties in verifying claims in the current conflict environment. When Moscow claims that the civilian damage was caused by Ukrainian defensive fire, the onus shifts to Kyiv to rapidly produce undeniable wreckage analysis, often under continued threat of attack, to prove otherwise. Conversely, when Kyiv claims the use of specific advanced Russian missiles, such as the Kinjal, independent intelligence agencies must dedicate resources to verifying those claims, which requires either highly sensitive signals intelligence or physical examination of debris. Resources that are often scarce or deliberately withheld. This lack of immediate neutral verification allows the competing narratives to solidify rapidly, shaping public and political opinion before the facts can fully emerge. The United Nations OCHA decision to suspend grain inspections is a powerful indicator of the immediate, tangible human cost beyond the casualties. The cessation of inspections creates uncertainty in the Black Sea shipping markets, directly impacting the contracts and deliveries slated for the coming weeks. While a 48-hour pause may seem brief, it sends a clear signal to insurers and vessel owners that the threat level is unacceptable, increasing the risk premium for operating in the zone. Should these strikes continue and the pause be extended, the economic pressure on Ukraine would become acute, potentially forcing them into less favorable negotiations or dramatically reducing their revenue streams necessary to fund the defense effort. Looking ahead, the response to Ukraine's demand for air defenses will be the immediate litmus test of Western commitment. The request for Patriot systems moves beyond routine ammunition resupply. It is a demand for systems that fundamentally shift the defensive calculus of a major operational area. The decision-making process in Washington, Berlin, and other capitals will weigh the strategic necessity of defending Odesa against the global constraints on Patriot availability, particularly given the escalating tensions in other global theaters that also rely on these defensive systems. If the advanced air defense systems are delayed or refused, Ukraine will face the difficult choice of either pulling existing, limited defenses from other critical infrastructure, such as the power grid or military staging areas, to concentrate them on Odesa, or accepting a greater degree of vulnerability for the port, potentially leading to further economic strangulation. The coming weeks will show whether the political will to supply these high-end assets matches the rhetoric of unwavering support. Furthermore, we must watch the immediate Russian reaction to the Ukrainian defense claims. If Kyiv successfully substantiates the use of high-end weaponry like the Kinjal, it signals Moscow's willingness to expend scarce technologically advanced resources to achieve objectives in Odesa, suggesting the disruption of this logistical hub is a critical military priority. If, on the other hand, subsequent strikes revert to cruise missiles or cheaper ballistics, it might indicate that the December 21st attack was an isolated attempt to achieve a specific high-value target, such as the alleged NATO weapons cache, and not a sustainable pattern if Kinjal deployment. The long-term watch list for Odesa must focus not just on military damage, but on economic impact. Analysts will be scrutinizing global food price indices and Black Sea shipping insurance rates. A sustained spike in these indicators would confirm the success of Russia's alleged economic terrorism strategy. In conclusion, the missile strike on Odesa's port facilities on December 21st is a multifaceted event. A humanitarian tragedy resulting in confirmed civilian casualties, a significant disruption to global food supply chains evidenced by the UN inspection pause, and a sharp escalation in the strategic contest over Ukraine's logistics and economic viability. Kyiv's immediate, precise demand for 2 Patriot batteries underscores the gravity of the threat now perceived over its southern gateway. As we await independent verification of the true targets hit and the advanced weaponry employed, the pressure remains squarely on Western capitals to provide the advanced defensive shield Ukraine insists is necessary to keep its vital port city functioning under fire. We continue to monitor the humanitarian and military developments from Odesa closely.